Welcome back to Mojo Talk Radio. And today I'm especially excited to have today's guest with us. Her name is Sharon Sayler, and she is a wonderful, wonderful guest and friend. I consider her a friend now. We've had a few conversations in the past already. And I love her professionalism, especially around this particular topic on communications that she's going to bring here to us today. And before I bring Sharon on and start questioning her ad nauseum about this particular language, not language, but particular topic on body language, just let me give you a little bit of a lowdown on who she is in the world. So, now you'd think I'd have this all queued up and ready to go, right? But here we go. Sharon Sayler is an international communications. Sharon, I lost you. Isn't that wonderful? Well, anyways, I'm just going to go. Sharon Sayler is an international communications expert. And one of the things that I tracked her down about was her topic about body language, expression at a very professional and high level. And she helps her clients communicate better out in the world using this particular, I would call, superpower of hers. She travels internationally. She's known internationally for this one thing. I'm going to have her explain it some more, but seriously, as she's talking, I'm going to bring her bio back up so I can read it fully for you, because it really is important that you understand who she actually is. I would consider her to be a superstar out there around this, because when you drill down into Sharon's work and you see the finite point in which she teaches people to be successful out there, you'd really appreciate who she is and that she's here with us today. So, Sharon Sayler, thank you so much for being here on Mojo Talk Radio.
Well, thank you, Pamela. It's always a pleasure to see you again.
Sharon, you know, prior to us going live on camera here, we had a little bit of a conversation leading up to this. And, you know, the before moments is always fun for me. I'm thinking, stop talking. This is where all the good stuff's happening. I got now, right? Because we're just flowing information that is important to both of us. And one of the things that we brought up before I pressed the record button was how we get in our own way regarding how we consciously or unconsciously communicate with other people, especially in the arena of work, relationships, and other types of meaningful types of relationships out there. So let's sort of get into, first of all, who you are, Sharon, out there, and how you help people, and then let's get really going into this beautiful topic.
Well, thank you, Pamela. Yes, I do travel the world teaching people body language. However, what I teach from the perspective is not reading other people. Yes, we can get into that, but the most important point is, what messages are you sending out there? Because I always say, they'll say, well, but they're being so mean, or they're being this. I'm like, what message are you sending that is eliciting that response back? And sometimes it could be as simple as where your chin is, or even an unconscious raise of an eyebrow can set someone off. Now, this doesn't mean you set them off. They might see that raise of the eyebrow. Or one time I had a woman just freak out when I did this, because these are, you know, I had readers on, and these are other kinds of glasses, but I had readers on. I had to do this to sort of see because of the magnet thing. And just doing that set her off. It reminded her of her third grade teacher and getting scolded. Now, that had nothing to do with me. I was not a third grade teacher, but it absolutely set her off on an entire track that she overlaid this story onto me.
It was triggered by you, by your action, your unconscious action. Yeah.
So that's how I teach people those simple nuances.
Yeah, I wonder how many times a day we do that out there to people unknowingly. So our body language is a fine art then. We are different parts of us are always in motion. Our eyebrows, lips, cheeks, arms, everything is always going. And if we're not schooled in how we do that or why we do certain things, the world might be reading us in a way that we don't necessarily mean for them to get, those messages to get, correct? So let's dive into that, Sharon, especially when people are trying to maybe are looking for jobs. They're in interview positions.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how you work with people in those particular positions.
Well, a couple of ways. We set up a few mock interviews. It can be via Skype or in person. And we set up with, what is a typical question in this profession you're likely to be asked? Recently, I helped a young woman who had just her heart set on becoming a doctor. And this was an interview to get into medical school, but very similar to a job interview. And she came to my office down in South Florida, and we had a chat, and she had been disappointed. She thought she'd done well in her other interviews, but hadn't been accepted. And she was down to her last couple of opportunities. So she came, and I met her, just a lovely, delightful person, really just schooled, intelligent. And it didn't take me long, though, to see the couple of things that she did with her body language that did not say doctor.
Like, for instance?
Well, the for instance is, now this is nothing to do with, nothing she can change, but she's a beautiful, petite, slight woman. So very short, petite, thin. And so she's going to have to project herself much more, I'll say, substantially. Because the first thing you see is almost what I call almost like a gymnast or a ballerina. Very elegant, and she just flowed, which was delightful to watch. Mm-hmm. But when you want someone to be a doctor, they have to have presence and what I call command presence.
That's right.
And she did one little thing with her head that absolutely every time she would talk to you and listen to you, she'd tip her head. Now, in a lot of cases, when it's friend to friend over coffee, it's fine to tip your head. It's fine. Sometimes it's nice. It shows that we're listening, we're concerned, it's empathetic. But the thing it says in a job interview is submissive. And so when you have the combination that you can't help, a slight body figure, and she could have changed the very elegance, but that, why change that? It was gorgeous to watch. But just teaching her, keep your chin parallel to the ground when you're talking. And, in these interviews, make sure your chin's parallel to the ground at all times. And you will look bigger when your chin's parallel to the ground and you're not sending the message of submissive. Yeah, it's such a simple thing. But the other thing is always when I say keep your chin parallel to the ground is sometimes you'll run into people that talk this way. Maybe they're short, or sometimes people, they'll say, stuck up, nose in the air kind of thing. So you keep your chin parallel to the ground and you stop that type of hallucination. For a long time, there was a female politician who I always thought was rather short, and I couldn't figure it out. I looked it up. She's my height, and I'm 5'6". I don't think that's particularly short. But when she talked to people, she talked this way. And everybody always thought that she was talking down to them. And I'm not sure where she learned that. She must have had tall family members or something because she talked this way. And the other opposite of that is how often you run into people and you go, well, I don't know, they're just not very friendly. And that's because they talk this way. So if you just learn to keep your chin parallel to the ground, it solves, how many problems was that? 4 or 5 problems right there? It solved. Right there.
A whole bunch, because it's true. The people tend to really sort of close in their body language, and because now we carry around devices where we're training our bodies to look down, closing everybody else off from the approach thing, because we're so busy down and in to these devices now that we're not welcoming.
Well, what's a funny thing? I work a lot in universities as well, and in the younger people, I'm seeing that they're foreshortening all their muscles. When I ask them to stand up tall, take a nice deep breath, and have their chin parallel to the ground, a lot of times they still kind of have this move because they've been in this position so long, they've tended to foreshorten some of the muscles, and it's unfortunately very sad. It's difficult for them to get correct posture. The kind of posture my beautiful Aunt Myrtle used to put a book on my head and said, keep walking, girl. So.
That's right. Sharon, do you find that our communication skills are taking a nosedive in our society these days based on technology?
Oh, don't get me started. Yes, absolutely. How many times I run into people, even older people now, who have given up the art of conversation. They absolutely just want to text you, and you lose so much of the feeling and the empathy and the connection and the relationship. I even enjoy video Skype and those sorts of things over just Skype, but absolutely over texting. And if you have the technology in front of you, say you're lucky enough to go to coffee or tea with your friend, how many times do you set the phone right there, right next to your coffee cup, in between you and your friend, and they have theirs set right there, and that little buzzer goes off, maybe you've been kind enough to turn off the ringer, and they still look at it. And you lose that absolute connection between people that builds up what I call the community. And a lot of people feel alone, even though on some of the social media, they'll say, well, I have so many friends. I'm like, got to redefine what friend means nowadays.
See, that's the other thing. I know we're sort of segueing a little bit away from the body language topic, but to me it's all the same, because the body language comes back because we were hiding behind screens. We can't read that anymore.
Right.
So what is a friend if I can't see the entirety of you and feel your energy flowing towards me? I really don't know if you're a friend or not.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a reason we shake hands, and that goes back to the ancient times, but it was to show that you didn't have any weapons.
I'm doing nothing except me.
But that's the interesting thing about it, and if we're just in our video Skype here, I have to bring up my hand gestures abnormally high to see them. But you lose this whole context of when an upward palm gesture is like this. Now, this is abnormally high, folks. Please don't raise it that high, but just to show it's an open palm gesture, that's a back and forth. That's a, Pamela, this is, the mic is open. Let's share. This is a thing. Now, if I was to do this, obviously lower, but it means not open to negotiation. So we lose that even on these video chats. We lose that context of, well, is this a sharing kind of talk, or is this a not open to negotiation talk? So it becomes more dependent on my voice pattern, and that's a voice pattern of going down on command. So I would say something, I think of the idea of Bond, James Bond, and that's down. That's very command-like. And then you need to go up, where it's, if you're with the community part, where you want to go up, and that would be where I'd inviting you to connect. And it's like, it almost sounds like a question. It goes, so this is how we do it. And then that invites you, when I go up at the end, to chime in.
Okay. So Sharon, how would we maybe think of pulling ourselves together in a first approach to somebody, so they understand that we are here to build community, be open, listen? What are some things that we need to be cognizant of as we're making that first approach?
Oh, the first one is our breathing. Absolutely. People are like, what do you mean my breathing? Shouldn't it be how I'm dressed, or, something like that? Have you ever been in a room and somebody just, I'll say maybe they're crazily dressed for the event, and you're like, well, why would they wear that? Or, all these little judgments go through your mind, and yet the whole room turns to look. It's because they're breathing comfortably. They know who they are, and they're willing to just like, this is me, I'm here. And it's because when we breathe low and slow and comfortably, we lower everybody's fight or flight mechanism. Even when you're in a networking type of event, we tend to breathe high a little bit. We get a little nervous, like, oh, will people like me? Or, did I bring enough business cards?
Yeah.
And we tend to try to get tightened up. But when we lower the shoulders like you just did and breathe low and slow, people are automatically just come to you because you're so comfortable. Your energy is different than anybody else in the room. And you're just like a magnet. They're drawn to you because they're like, oh, she's comfortable. Now, you could be standing by yourself and people still come over. That's because they're fascinated, like, whoa, who's she?
Yeah. Nice. So what are some things that we do to repel people?
Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, first off, breathing high and rapid, that repels people really quick. Another one is what I'll call non-inclusive gestures. Oftentimes at networking events or groups, when we're talking really close and face-to-face, like this. And oftentimes people, you could see out of the corner of your eye, maybe want to join or whatever, but you're so close that it's impossible for people to feel like they can be part of it. So oftentimes in a networking event or some sort of event like that, if you have just a slight more distance between you so you can keep in your peripheral vision and be able to include people as you see them kind of look like, well, can I join that group? You just do an outward palm gesture from your waist, like, come on in, kind of a, here it is a little awkward from up here, but kind of a come on in type of gesture is very inclusive. Other things you can do to be inclusive is make eye contact with people. That is so overlooked nowadays. How often can you just be walking down the street and you make eye contact with them? First thing they do is look down or look at their phone.
Now, what does that say? I see that a lot. I see people that I want to say something to as we're passing the street, not because I'm this crazy woman, but maybe there's a very good reason why. I couldn't say right now. But I noticed that they scurry away with their eyes, meaning that they see you and they make a point of looking down and away, which means do not stop and talk to me.
Right.
What is that?
Well, it could mean any number of things. It could mean I'm in a hurry, I don't have time to stop and talk to you. It could mean I don't know what to say. It could mean, oh my gosh, you've seen me in my sweats. I've just got out of the gym. Please don't notice that my hair is, whatever. It could mean anything. So we don't want to read into it too much.
Yeah.
Other than if we're walking down the street, and I kind of play it as a little game. If I'm walking down the street, making eye contact with people and see who will play with me, who will make eye contact back. And then I just go, hello, or have a good day. And then people oftentimes are like, oh my goodness, what just happened?
I know, and it's true. I've done it a few times just to see what people will do by you noticing them. And I think one of the biggest values people have is the sense of belonging and being noticed by other people. Mm-hmm. And we do it very well on our phones, if you're on Facebook, our likes and our whatever we do, the smiley faces and the hearts that we do on Facebook. But in that in-person piece isn't well practiced. We don't know what to do outside of the Facebook, or I would say social media arena, because what do you do when you're in front of people? It was really easy when we're all liking and smooching with icons.
Yes, absolutely.
What happens when I meet you face to face? And that happens a lot. It's like, oh, I know you from Facebook, and you both stand there.
Well, you're in the public eye like I am, and nothing is worse than getting into an elevator and them going, Sharon, I saw you in Los Angeles. And I'm like, oh my goodness, which trip to Los Angeles? And oftentimes I may not have met them, but social media oftentimes creates a feeling of people knowing us more than they really know us. So to meet in an elevator and go, Sharon, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I supposed to know this person? And it's a whole scenario that goes through your head. And I found, in this case, just honesty is the best policy. Please, it's, hello, can I have a little more context? Or where did I meet you? Or something like that. Honesty is always the best policy. If you say it with a smile, you say it with your eyes smiling too. I mean, we don't want to look like the Joker from Batman, that kind of forced smile. How many times do we meet people that just do that forced smile and you're like, the eyes aren't smiling? That's the critical part. Yeah. You say anything like that, being vulnerable, like, oh my gosh, I'm so honored that you recognize me, but can I have a little context? Where did we meet? And then they're fine, because oftentimes you could say, I travel and meet so many people. When did we meet?
Yeah, please help me remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about our hands? Like, we're in a group situation. Sometimes it's like, what do you do with your hands? Because obviously we're being polite. We don't have our phones in our hands, so we can't.
Bravo.
Okay. So what do you do with your hands so you don't look fidgety and uncomfortable and awkward?
Well, the one that I always suggest, but everybody whines and complains about, is just keep them down at your side naturally where they're supposed to be. Because what happens is if we put it in what I call the fig leaf pose, and that's, your hands over like a fig leaf, that sends a message. It's okay if you're in a casual setting, because it just sends a message of I'm harmless. Now, if you're in a board meeting or a business meeting, and it's still maybe that little bit before the team meeting and you're still a little bit of networking is going on, you don't want to be sending that message, I'm harmless. You want to be sending the message, I'm confident. And so having your hands down by the side is the most important one. Having the hands behind you also says either I'm harmless or I'm hiding something. And then the worst one is what I call the Batman, the Superman Wonder Woman pose, where, the hands are on the hips, ready for the OK Corral kind of pose. Mm-hmm. Now, this pose got really popular by Dr. Amy Cuddy and what she calls power poses. It is true that people, taking up more space makes you feel more confident, and people see you as more confident because you're taking up more space. Mm-hmm. The problem with that pose is, do it behind closed doors so it will change your own physiology, your own mental readiness for it, because this will change your physiology. But the interesting thing about it, they talk about how it changes the hormones testosterone and cortisol. But if you put your hands on your hips right now, you'll notice you can breathe deeper and easier in this pose. So that's what changes your hormones, is the ability to breathe deep. Now, do not go in front of the board of directors and do this pose and give your talk. It will not be well received because we could do this behind closed doors. We walk in with our arms down by our sides and ready to present. And we're able then to bring up our hand gestures, do whatever we need with our hand gestures. Now, you might be saying, Sharon, I just don't feel comfortable with my hands at my sides where they're meant to be. I can't do it. Then walk in with a notebook, pencil and paper, old-fashioned notebook, not a tablet like a iPad type of tablet, not that, because that's technology. And people just absolutely feel you're not paying attention if you have technology between you and them. But it's funny, if you've got an old-fashioned yellow legal pad and a pencil or anything like that, people don't care. They're comfortable.
Yeah,
oh,
because
I
the
don't
notepad
remember
is
that.
talking back. It's not going to beep. It's not going to take attention away. That's the thing. These devices have the ability to cut things short. Something urgent might happen on it, right?
And even if it bings and you said you don't even bother to look at it, there's that mental lapse where you're going, you know, you want to look down and you lose your train of thought for just a second. There's that mental lapse where that technology has come between you, even if you don't say, oh, I need to respond or forget it or something like that. It still is a barrier.
As I'm here, just trying to make sure that we're doing good here. So how do I get ready for an event? How do I get ready? Like you just said, put my hands on my hips. I've done some breathing. I'm taking up space. My physiology is ramping up. What else can I do to get myself in tip-top shape to present full force, mojo rising, and I get out in front of the people? What are some body language things for the audience to know it's going to be a good thing?
Okay. Well, first off, you need to know the intent of your talk and audience. But I always say any connection you can make, regardless if it's a very serious talk or it's a motivational talk, humorous talk, doesn't matter. Before you go on stage and you've got that power pose going on, you're breathing nice and deep and comfortable. Right before you go on stage, do a forced laugh. This is Now, don't have your mic on. Don't have your lavalier on when you do that, okay? Just forced laugh. What happens is your whole physiology changes instantly. You get this nice big smile, your eyes start to twinkle, and you do that right before you step on stage or right before you turn on the video camera. And you've got that twinkle, that connection going on. So that's a really quick one. The next one, when you step out on stage, we'll say on stage, and then let's talk about networking, is you welcome everyone with both arms open, like welcome, or it's a pleasure to be here. And both arms go out and open, because that is saying, I'm seeing all of you. How many times do we get out there and we see a speaker just do, you know, this? And now you might be lucky enough to be in, you know, sort of a shot of that, but it's disregarding the entire group. So it's important to encompass everyone. And so if you're speaking. Now, if you're walking into a networking event, go ahead and do the forced laugh as well. But here again, you need to know your intent, but you also need to know your natural tendencies. If you're more introverted, just play as if you're one of your more extroverted friends. Now, this is not fake it till you make it, because fake it till you make it doesn't work. Fake it till you make it, the brain, the unconscious brain is, oh, Sharon, you're just faking it. It's no big deal. So it comes across as fake. But I'm actually very introverted and shy, but here, you know, I could talk to thousands of people at a time because I have a beautiful extroverted friend. And I've studied, what do they do? What are the habits they do when they're out there doing their thing? I was like, oh, I can do that behavior. And then what happens is you do that behavior and you get feedback from people and you're like, well, that felt good. They really connected with me. But the interesting thing is, I just do that behavior to make the connection. And then, as most people know with introverts, we like to go deep and really know somebody. So once I'm able to do the extroverted way to make the connection, I just go deep and be who I am. It's just about that slight little shift. Remember I said the chin, slight little shift?
Yeah.
here, I'm not being extroverted doing at the whole event. I'm just doing that slight little extroverted type of thing of opening my eyes, making a little small talk, having a big smile, and walking up to someone fearlessly. And then afterwards, I make that connection, and I have the opportunity to go deep with them, like who I am likes to do.
What about our stance on our legs and our feet? Do we have to be aware of that as well?
Oh, great question. Absolutely. Especially as women. One of my big pet peeves with women, I know why we do it because I wear high heels too, but crossing our ankles while we're standing. It says little girl. Absolutely drives me crazy. I know why we do it because we cross our ankles, it relieves one hip, the pressure off one hip over the other, and so it allows one leg to relax in the high heels.
Yeah.
And then we just cross the other way, it allows the other hip to relax. You know, I say get different shoes if it's really that big of a pain in your back, because I wear flats all the time now. Nobody's ever said, Sharon, you're wearing flats. You know, you're not competent, you're wearing flats. It doesn't work that way. But if I was to stand there with my ankles crossed, even with my skill set, people would be going, huh, it says little girl, which who, believes little girl's competent. Now men, they often don't stand that way, but they stand more in an S curve. Then that sends a lack of confidence as well. An S curve is where one hip is forward and to the side a little bit. So you imagine you're sort of shaped like an S. And men stand like that. That's the equivalent of a woman standing with her ankles crossed, as a man standing in an S curve where one hip is out to the side and then their body makes this S shape. It also says lack of confidence. So the best thing for both genders to do is just stand naturally with your feet under your hips. And just, if you're that uncomfortable, ask somebody to sit with you.
Okay. So in a group setting or on front of the stage, I'll say, just for those that do that, standing with your legs, how many inches are apart? I was going to say how many feet apart, how many inches apart?
Feet apart, that would be fun. We're playing Twister now. No, actually just directly under your hips. So I can't give you I can't say 6 inches because it depends on how tall, how tall, how short you are. But just directly under your hips so you're very balanced. And what people then see, if you've got your ankles crossed or an S curve of any way, you look off balance. And people don't consciously go, oh, they're off balance, but you look like a pushover. If people subconsciously go, they're off balance, I can push them over. I will come in here very forcefully. I will do aggressive types of things to see if they are a pushover. So why give that message? Just stand with very balanced, and people will they won't know what to do with you. So you'll just be able to come in with confidence.
Yeah. Nice. Sharon, give us an example of a time where you had a client that came in really needing you, they had no clue that they were pissing people off based on your body language and skills.
Oh my gosh, several come to mind.
And what you had to say to them, and what were their results after working with you?
Oh, okay. Well, the one that comes to mind most was at a women's meeting. A beautiful woman came up to me afterwards and says, I'm about to get fired. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. We had a nice chat, and one of the things I always find out is, how does the person think? Do they take challenges? Are they high risk, or are they high systems and process? And those are very different types of people. Well, after a couple of questions, I realized she was very much into high systems, high process. So you ask her a question, and I'm going to take off my glasses, she would make this face. This scrunchy face, eyebrows in, I can't even do it. She had been doing it for so long, she had this little valley here, and she'd sort of purse her lips. And so I quickly grabbed my cell phone, I snapped a picture of it, and I showed her. Now, if you saw this face, what would you be thinking? And she goes, oh my gosh, that's no wonder my boss thinks that every idea he's ever told me that I hated. And I couldn't understand, because I was just trying to figure it out. And he kept saying, why do you hate all my ideas? It was that judgmental face. But you see, she wasn't being judgmental. this was coming from her heart. You ask her, how would you do this? Or let's go here on vacation, how question. And she would go internal. And she would start figuring out how. She was blank. She didn't know she was making that face. So be aware what your face is making.
Well, remember I told you at the beginning of this, my face, it's so expressive that sometimes I'm thinking, ooh, what did I just say with my eyes? Because I have very huge expressive eyes, right?
Yeah.
Or I just want to make sure that I'm not coming across in a way that is unconsciously negative. I don't think so, because I usually have a smile on my face, so I think I can counteract it with my smile. But at the same time, if I'm not smiling, if I look away with my eyes, it looks dismissive.
Right. Well, those are little micro expressions, and they're unconscious. Even I do them. It's a shock, annoyed, surprise, any of those sorts of things that happen. We hear a sound and we, get startled. Any of those little micro expressions, we cannot counteract. But the cool thing about that is we can always apologize later. Right? Like, oh, I'm sorry, I was lost in thought. Or, oh, it's a pleasure to meet you. And then there's something startled happen. Oh my goodness, well, here I am back again. So you can always recover. I always say it's better to be able to recover than it is to just keep going on clueless.
So Sharon, what are some signs that we are annoying people out there with our body language?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think technology is probably the key one I hear now. People absolutely get annoyed by that lack of connection through technology. Another one is when we listen to people, this gets us into trouble a lot of times, is that we nod our head the entire time, almost like a bobblehead doll. Have you ever met someone that does that?
Yeah.
It might stop for a second or two, but pretty soon it's going again.
Yeah. I have to consciously do that because sometimes I'm doing it too as I'm nodding in agreement. Yeah.
We can be in agreement, but an interesting thing is a lot of people nod their head and they're just nodding to saying, I'm listening. They're not saying I'm agreeing. And what often happens here is people will go, well, you and I talked about it. You agreed to everything I said. And you're like, what are you talking about? I just heard you ask the question. I never agreed to that. So that can get us in a lot of trouble too. But the one to be careful of is the inadvertent eye roll.
That's my daughter. When she gives you the eye roll, you know you're done.
That is the one to be careful of, because oftentimes something will happen and we are unaware that we've just rolled our eyes. Mine, I've sort of trained my eyes not to roll, but I still have this stray eyebrow that goes up on when I'm startled or shocked or annoyed. I still have this stray eyebrow I have to be aware of and make sure that I haven't sent the wrong message. And the best way to know is if you get a response back that you're like, what was that response? Rewind your mental tape and go, okay, what message did I accidentally send? Because whenever you get a response you don't understand, they picked up on something that you said, and they, as we talked about at the beginning, the triggers, they just immediately glommed onto that idea of like, oh my goodness, they are thinking this or they're thinking that, and you're not.
So as we're winding down on our conversation today, one of the few things I picked up from you today to make sure that I'm on my body language game is to breathe.
Breathe.
Make sure I'm breathing, I'm feeling relaxed, I have shoulders down, I'm feeling expansive, hands down the best I can. If not, I've got my notebook and pen with me. Keep technology out of the middle between us as we're in communication. And if I'm standing, make sure that I'm, in a balanced state. I don't look like I'm a pushover or submissive.
Right.
All right. And to just practice these simple things. Now, for our listening audience here today, for more intensive work around your body language, because this is huge. This is a deal maker or breaker in communications and negotiations. And when you're in front of large audiences, people, their first initial reaction to you is how you pull your whole being into the space with them.
Absolutely.
And that they decide whether they're going to listen and or trust you, the rest of it.
But the interesting thing, Pamela, to remember is that can happen way feet before, like at the door or in the hallway. That can happen way before you are even realizing you're making that connection. So if you're going into an interview even as you're getting out of the parking lot, make sure that you are breathing confidently and collected, and your energy is all centered and you're balanced, all of that. So make sure that it's not just when we make eye contact that that snap judgment happens. It can happen way before we think it happens.
Yes, yes. Sharon, you have been an absolute well of wisdom on this, because there's just so much here. We can talk for a very long time, as you well know, about this. It's such a huge, huge topic. So we'll have you on again to go into it, because, you know, this is something that I work with in the world of public relations, but at the same time, for those blind spots that you bring to us, to bring the unconscious to the conscious, as to why you may be running into a wall with people all the time. Because I started thinking about it for myself. What did I do with my eyes? What did I do with my shoulders? What's happening, right? Because nobody wants to be that person.
Right, exactly.
We all want to engage successfully because, you know, the world of networking demands it, but are we doing it right? No matter what we do, if we're not positioning our whole selves properly, we're not making the connections that we hoped to make.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, listening audience, remember I told you I was going to introduce Sharon correctly at the end. So here we go. Sharon Sayler is an international communications trainer, speaker, best-selling author, and CEO of the strategic communications firm Competitive Edge Communications. She has been affectionately dubbed the difficult people whisperer. She really teaches courageous, conscious communication skills and a lot about body language, as she is one of the top experts for body language expertise according to globalgurus.com. Very nice.
Thank you.
She is a published author of 7 books, including the perennial favorite of hers, What Your Body Says and How to Master the Message. The Authors Show voted Sharon one of 50 nonfiction authors you should be reading. And if that's not enough, she's also the host of the popular The Autoimmune Hour podcast, and her first children's book, Pinky Chenille and the Rainbow Hunters, is coming out in June. Wow. Busy lady, busy lady. So thank you for making time for us here on
Always.
radio.
Always. Thank you so much. Always just a joy to be sharing time with you, Pamela.
Well, thank you. And like I said, we'll have you back again. So for the Mojo Talk audience, thank you again for joining us here for another great segment with another power player here on planet Earth. And please do find Sharon at her website at SharonSayler.com. Okay, so we'll talk to you all again. Bye-bye. And remember, make sure you've got your power moves on. Bye-bye.